everyone, welcome back. I did promise a life update, so that's what today's gonna be, as I'm sure you've already figured out from the title. So the plan for this video is I'm going to just get ready, basically, as a chatty get ready with me. I may or may not touch on the products. I haven't really decided what I'm gonna do yet, and I'm gonna give you the requested update. Alright, so first I'm going to start off with my Tarte Poreless Primer. My skin's been a little bit weird lately, so it's my pores seem bigger and I've got this breakout here that just doesn't seem to want to go away. So that is this primer here. The official name is the Timeless Smoothing Primer Base. So because I have super long nails, I've had to kind of dig into products to put them on my face, or I just end up with a ton of garbage underneath my nails, which I don't love. Alright, so I don't even know where to start for this update. Truthfully, a few fairly significant things have gone on in the last few months. So I guess let's start with what I believe was the last thing I had left off with, which was getting my tubes tied and that fight and that story in general. So, I probably shouldn't get emotional, but if I do, there's really no reason for it other than just general frustration and stress going on right now of coronavirus. That's something else I should touch on, as I hope everyone is doing okay with their self-isolation or whatever it is that you're doing to work through this very strange time. My dad was saying he's seen a lot of shit go on in his lifetime, and this is the first. Anyway, so I did end up getting my tubes tied in December, on December 17th actually, which is my brother's birthday. I did end up actually getting an appointment, and they finally agreed to let me do it after, truthfully, probably a solid 15 to 20 years of me asking, which is a whole other huge issue in itself. I did go back and forth with my doctors quite a bit over what to do, because there is a ton of reproductive cancers in my family. On the women's side of things, my mom's dealt with a few different bouts, my grandmother as well, of different types of cancers in that area. So we did opt to not only tie my tubes, but actually remove them, as well as part of my ovaries. Because apparently the little spongly part of the fallopian tube that grabs onto your ovary is very susceptible to certain cancers, and that's where most ovarian cancers come. So it was a educated and scientific decision to do so. I have no interest in having children. I never have. It's something that I've been pretty adamant about my whole entire life. Actually, not even my whole adult life, my whole entire life. So I was in recovery from surgery for a while. It was a little bit more serious than we had initially anticipated. But all's well that ends well. That came out well. I feel good. It actually kind of solved some other issues I was having, so that was really great. I'm just gonna grab my Jaclyn Hill Morphe palette. I know that she's in some hot water yet again over this, but I've been reaching for this a ton. You can probably actually see active usage in it. Not even just finger swatches, but where I've dug my brush in, and I've actually almost used every single shade. So yeah, so we had that surgery. I ended up hosting Christmas dinner less than a week after that surgery. It did end up being a little bit more intense than I had anticipated, but I'm glad I did it, and I do not in any way regret that decision at all. It was exactly what I wanted, and truthfully, ladies, if there is something that you need to fight for with your medical health, do it. Please don't let anybody dictate what you can and can't do, especially when it comes to your rights to birth control and reproductive value, etc. It was generally an okay experience. There was a couple of bumps along the road where they required I ask for permission from my husband, and I don't even know if they meant to say permission, but that's kind of how I took it. They made me verify that he was okay with it, which was kind of crappy. So yeah, that was a pretty big one. was finally being able to get that done. It did take me about 3 weeks to start to feel kind of normal again. It was laparoscopic. People typically don't talk about this type of thing, so if there's anything you're curious about, if there's any information I can share with you about the either procedure, recovery, or preparation, there is definitely an opportunity to have some of the taboo removed from the subject matter in general. I found it a little bit odd as I was going through it, how many people had so many strong feelings on it in a negative light, as well as just strong feelings in general, and either were really uncomfortable asking what was going on or whatever. And I know some people are private, and I can appreciate that, and I don't think that's the real problem. I think it's that people were so afraid to ask. So, as I've said, if you have a question or you have something you would like me to touch on, I will absolutely do that. So you notice I'm going in and out of this palette quite a bit. I'm using the shade Therapy Sesh, which, funny enough, this feels like that's kind of what this is. It's a great shade. There's a tiny bit of fallout in it. Again, it's this one here, but I feel like it blends nicely. I just like to really make sure it's blown out. And I like to go in a little bit at a time with like purples and pinks to make sure that we're getting the right quality. Also, I just accidentally jammed my finger into Living My Best. So what else has been going on? If you've been around here for any amount of time, you know that my job has a tendency to be pretty insane. There was reorgs happening in my world for most of October and November, which is fine, and that's kind of what happens in the industry that I'm in, and I'm not complaining, but it was very challenging for a lot of us, and really took a lot of time while things were up in the air. So that kind of took me away from YouTube, and honestly didn't have me in the best mental state to be like, haha, makeup. As I said in my last Get Ready With Me as well, I did do like a random Get Ready With Me, I want to say 4 or 5 months ago. I did kind of touch on the beauty community in general and how it wasn't like a nice space to be in anymore, and it was a little bit ridiculous to deal with, and I wasn't really sure how I felt about that, and I was considering leaving. I don't think I will ever define that I'm leaving one way or the other. Like, I will post when I feel like posting, and if I don't feel like posting, then I just won't. So I did take on an entirely new group at work as well. So I already had a pretty crazy job and a pretty crazy life as it came to my career, and now that has seemingly gotten quite a bit worse. Worse is not the right word, but quite a bit busier. So we just kind of go with the flow there. Now I'm going to go into the shade A Moment, which is in the corner here. So then we're coming up, so I know I'm bouncing around in the timeline a little bit, but we did have to take my mother-in-law to a specialist appointment in November, where I really didn't think too much of the appointment at all, to be honest with you. I thought it was just something fairly routine. In hindsight, I probably should have really known better, but I have no idea what the hell I was thinking going into that appointment, not realizing why we were being sent to a specialist, first of all, and to the hospital we were being sent to. In fairness, she did kind of blindside it to me, just asking if I could take her to an appointment, and I didn't really have too much information at the time, so I guess I just wasn't really prepared for where we were at, and not really having known the situation at hand. But we basically got a really crappy diagnosis. She was feeling some numbness in her hands and ended up needing a very serious spinal surgery that actually she has just had now. So it's been about almost 6 months since this all started, and she has just very, very recently, I feel like I'm, again, going after Teresa Is Dead, and it's like controversial month here. I've got a Jeffree Star palette and a Jaclyn Hill palette. Sweet Jesus. So she ended up having to have her vertebrae in her neck sawed open and then drilled out with a little drill, because basically what was happening is her spinal cord was being crushed by her vertebrae, and I'm trying to think of what the right word is, the arthritis that had built up in the vertebrae in her neck. So she's in pretty rough shape. She's at the hospital right now. We've been back and forth quite a bit. I've been back and forth quite a bit trying to make sure she is, one, in good spirits, and two, staying healthy. So that was tougher than I anticipated dealing with. I know it's obviously much worse for her, but a lot of my spare time has been going, especially in the last week, into making sure she is cared for and figuring out what we're gonna do with that and what her recovery is gonna look like. The surgery did go well, all is well, she's good, but it was a very stressful few months trying to work through all of that. It was a very serious surgery, but all's well that ends well. She's good and we're good and everyone is good. I just took the shade Beauty Sleep from this Bloodlust palette and put it kind of in my inner quarter. I'm not going anywhere, so I'm just kind of playing around. I think I'm actually going to take one of the mattes from this as well and blend out the top a little bit better. So I'm going to take Deviant from Bloodlust, which is the shade here, and do the same. What else happened? I did go back to New York in October. I can't remember if I touched on that in my last video or not, but I did go back to New York in October for Ipsy Live, which was a great time. What else happened in the last few months that I should probably talk about? Actually, there is a fairly big thing I will talk about. I had a really bad last 6 months when it comes to like where my overall mental state was and everything I needed to deal with, and I have a habit of feeling like I need to take everything on, and half the time it's because I kind of do, which is fine. My personality does actually bode better that way because I do like to be in control. For those of you who do really know me, who would have thought it? But I'm pretty self-aware of that fact, and I try and work within what my personality requires to be happy and to be good. So let's go in and deepen up this outer corner a little bit, shall we? I'm gonna go back in my Jaclyn Hill palette and use Temptress, which is the black, and just kind of get it in here a bit. But yeah, because of that, my mind in general wasn't super stable, and I'm still recovering from that. I was really struggling with how big I had gotten. I have since lost about 25 pounds, so yay for that. But it's good to acknowledge sometimes when you know you're not doing great and seeing what you can do about that. I feel like this is jumping all over the place. Not only is my conversation jumping all over the place, but so is my makeup. My family is going through some things right now as well that I'm not going to be talking about, which isn't really helping and has been taking some attention away from the social aspects of my life, and I would call YouTube one of the social aspects of my life. Guys, I'm so sorry. The lighting is really strange and I can't seem to get it to stabilize. I have been slowly trying to identify the things that help me feel more in control and more like myself, and one of those things is doing this. So here I am, and I feel like I have to have this like sort of reevaluation of the value that YouTube and social media has in my life, and it's a really strange balance for me, trying to balance between the negative parts of social media and the positive parts of social media, where I want to be on the forum because I love to talk to you guys and I love to be involved in this community, but this community can also be super toxic, which you all know and you've all seen with like the Jaclyn Hill drama, the James Charles drama, and just like drama for everyone, really. I don't think there's anybody at this point who can truly be unassociated from it. I think I'm gonna leave the eye look there. What do we think? I guess my point of this video is just know that when YouTubers do take time away, just remember that they're human too, and maybe there's stuff that they don't want to share. And I appreciate that, like, this is a lot of people's bread and butter, and you can't want to be in the public eye and not actually be then in the public eye when it's not convenient for you. I really do appreciate that. Oh shit. I just cut that in a little too far. I can appreciate the fact that like if you choose to have this as a career, you are kind of put on blast, but at the same time, we afford celebrities the ability to kind of step away and have a moment, but we don't afford YouTubers and social media celebrities the same allowance. So I'm hoping to be able to spend more time getting content out for you guys, and just when I feel like it, because truthfully there's time when I do have time, but I don't feel like I'm in the right mental state to be like super chipper and honest and have a great time. But that's kind of where you need to be when you're on social media. So I will, on a more positive note, I am going to touch on the weight loss aspect of things. Like I said, I have managed to drop about 25 pounds in about 2 months. I do that in a healthy manner. Everybody's like, oh my God, what did you do? What pill did you take? Like, no. I work my ass off. I only eat super healthy. And I remember that everything you do today is for your future self. And there is a podcast that I have listened to over the last little while, which has been about what you do and how you treat your future self. It's called The Happiness Lab. I will try and find a link to it down below. I'm very new to podcasts, so I don't actually know if you can link to podcasts or not, but we're going to find out. If I can, it'll be there. It's by, I believe, a Yale professor named Laurie Santos, and she is wonderful, and it's the idea of how you can work contentfulness into your life instead of happiness, because most people are not happy. Happy's the high. Happy's the hit. Nothing is as good as we think it's going to be, and nothing is as bad as we think it's going to be, and we recover from so many things. So if you have a hard time with that whole like concept of happiness and the concept of staying happy, and I'm not happy in my relationship, in my job, in my life, or whatever it is that you're dealing with, I do strongly recommend this podcast. The foundation I have been using a lot lately is the Catrice, what is this called? Catrice HD Liquid Coverage Foundation. Apparently lasts up to 24 hours. It is a mattifying foundation, so if you don't like matte foundations, I don't recommend it, but I do, so here we are. Anyway, yeah, the entire premise of one of her podcasts she had done was she started it talking about this girl that she just hates and she treats like garbage, and this girl has to deal with so much of her shit, and every time Lori slacks off, this other girl has to pick up her slack and constantly redo her work and constantly just treats this person super poorly. And the whole time you're like, oh my God, why do you treat this person like this? Why do you treat them so poorly? And like, why are you such a bitch to this person? What did this person do to you? And she does probably a solid 10 minutes into this podcast, and then she reveals the person that she's talking about is her future self. And I have this thing where I like to listen to like motivating podcasts, and I like to read motivating books, and I like to take a lot of like emotional intelligence courses, and I find the human mind very interesting. I find mental health and sexuality very interesting, and I'm not saying I'm an expert in any of these fields. I like to indulge in information around these fields. But not everything clicks. Not everything stays in my mind. There's things that may click in the moment, but not everything really sinks in for me. So, that being said, I feel like that specifically, the my future self, is something that really stuck for me. I'm gonna have to clean up underneath, yikes. So I started looking at what I was eating again, and I was thinking, what is this doing to my future self? Is this making her happy, or is this making her sad? And when I started changing my mindset to think only in what is this doing for my future self, my ability to snap back into a healthier lifestyle was almost instant. I think it was only 2 or 3 days of using that as my benchmark of why I should or shouldn't do something before I really was getting my life back on track. And I was looking at my YouTube channel. I was looking at my YouTube channel and seeing subscribers dropping and seeing views drop and seeing some other stupid things happen in my channel. And I decided, like, my future self is going to look at this again. There's going to be less subscribers, there's going to be less views, there's going to be less involvement in the community in general, and your future self is going to be annoyed by it, which is 100% accurate. So here I am wanting to give the update and kind of let you guys know where I'm at. I don't know why, but the last 6 months I felt kind of crappy, and I hate when people come on social media and they're like, oh, my mental health has been poor, so I was not around. But like, it absolutely happens, and sometimes you don't want to sit and talk to a camera, or sometimes you do and you physically cannot get off the couch to do it because you've been surgerized on your insides. If you have any really solid podcasts that you find interesting, or you think I would find interesting based on what I just went through, I would love to know. I'm using the Pat McGrath Labs Skin Fetish Sublime Perfection Blurring. Oh, it says under eye powder, but I totally use it on my whole face. This is in the shade medium. I'm loving this, by the way. It's got more kick up than I want, but back to what I was saying. If there are any podcasts you can think of that you think I would be interested in, I'm getting to that point in my life when I prefer to listen to podcasts while I'm commuting than anything else. And I'm running out of good ones. So I'm here for them. My preference is really good storytelling. So even if it is about like mental health or mental state or like motivational or anything like that, I still like a good storyteller. So let's have at it. I'm happy to hear what you've got for me. I honestly thought this update would take longer, so now I feel like I gotta speed this shit up. I am gonna have to be in and out of the hospital with my mother-in-law for the next little while because my husband does not get paid to take vacation and I do, so it financially makes more sense for it to be me, and I'm happy to do so to make sure she's cared for. That surgery was crazy. Honestly crazy. I couldn't even believe it that was even an option. And I will say that apparently this condition is super common, so like some symptoms to look out for is tingling in your hands, numbness in your hands. They did say it's very hard to diagnose because the symptoms are very hard to identify. You won't really notice them because it happens so quickly. Sometimes it's just chalked up to like, oh, well, I'm just getting older. So like difficulty writing, difficulty with fine motor skills, anything like that is an identifier with this issue, where your spinal cord is being compressed. So if there's anybody in your life, especially anybody older, who has these types of symptoms, or if they have difficulty with their balance all of a sudden, or not even all of a sudden, but if it's something that they struggle with, I would suggest they go and get an MRI done. It was a very emergent case in our situation, and truthfully I'm super glad it wasn't cancer and that there was something that they could do about it, but it was definitely shitty, and we're into a very long road of recovery now. And the other thing with this condition is in most cases they actually don't get better. So you go and you get this surgery, which is a fairly life-altering surgery, and you don't get better, you just don't get worse. Oh, this is the tiniest mirror. I've never noticed that before. So you're sitting here and you do get this surgery, and in most surgeries you assume that there is a road to recovery that is ultimately fairly positive. But in this situation, in 66-70% of the cases, the symptoms just don't get worse. The ones that they have don't technically go away. So the issue with that is if you get yourself to the point where you're really losing motor function, you don't get it back. You just don't get worse. And this can go right down to paralysis. So like losing the function of your legs completely, which obviously isn't good. The best news we did get is the surgeon was fairly certain that he had gotten enough clearance that she would, with a very long road to recovery, actually be in that 30%, that her symptoms will improve, which is excellent news. And excited to help her get there and get a little bit more mobile and make sure that she's on a good road to recovery and a good road to make sure she has a long life ahead of her that is not dependent on other people. And she's currently not dependent on other people by any means, don't get me wrong. She was only in the space where she was losing the function in her arms a little bit, but it was not to any kind of epic proportions where she had to have people do things for her. So again, we were lucky in that sense as well, and that she had the good enough sense to actually go and look into it. I hope this update's been interesting. I feel like it's been a little bit rambly. So my husband just called me because we're having a hard time finding dog food because everybody's freaking out. So I'm sure everybody knows about this as well, but can we please be sensible about this COVID-19 thing? Like, can we stop buying everything and acting like the world is falling apart? It's absolutely serious. I appreciate that it's serious. I have no argument that it's serious or not. But holy moly, it's like we're making it worse than it is by doing stuff like that. And like buying all the toilet paper and buying all the Clorox wipes. Like, everyone can survive for 2 weeks with 1 to 2 containers of Clorox wipes. I guess I'm just gonna go like hella purple today. I'm ready for it. I'm really in the market for a new mascara. Does anybody have any suggestions for me? I'm going to use the Jeffree Star Liquid Lip from the Queen Bitch collection. It came out with Bloodlust in the shade I'm Royalty. If I remember correctly, I didn't love the swatch of this, so this could go badly. This could really go badly. Oh yeah, we're in a totally different tone family, but we're gonna go with it. Okay guys, sorry, this is like a very choppy video at this point. People keep calling me because of everything that's going on, but I want to do it anyway and get this out anyway. So the lip product did go on better than I recall in the swatch. It is a little bit more solid, but I do have a hard time with dark liquid lipsticks. One of my Cupid's bows is very sharp and the other one is very round, and it's not as noticeable when I don't have lip product on, but when I do, it's super noticeable. Like, this side is like, see how it's kind of like up and this side's more like full. I used to try and even them out, but I don't bother anymore. I like to think it's part of my charm. And I did throw on some liquid liner while I was at it. It's just the NYC liquid liner that I always wear. My last step will be the mascara, and I've been using the Bad Girl Bang from Benefit. Yeah, Benefit. Who also is in some hot water lately about the Georgia Peach not having a shade range that's good enough. Which honestly, it's 2020. We're having pandemics. Can we get better at this? I do want to touch on one last thing just before I go. I did have that surgery as laparoscopic surgery. They went through my belly button and through 2 small incisions around my belly. If I'm feeling ballsy enough, I will put some photos in here. I probably won't because I hate my stomach. That being said, they are definitely pretty dark scars, so even if you are having a laparoscopic surgery, don't expect to come out with no scars. They're definitely very visible. They're small but visible, but obviously much better than having your entire belly cut open. Anyway guys, I hope this very sporadic and random update was helpful for you and you got some insight into where I have been the last few months and what's been going on. Please stay tuned for a palette collection update for 2020, as well as a project pan that I'm going to be starting. I'm kind of slowly doing one on my own to work through some products, but I think it's time that I share it with you and hold myself accountable a little bit. So I hope to see you there, and I hope to see you later. Bye.